Welcome back to the Serve2Perform Podcast. I am your host, Delaney Osborne, and today we are joined with a very special guest, Dr. Adam Arroyos. Thank you so much for joining us, Adam.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Delaney.
Of course. So we're going to talk a little bit about what Serve2Perform is, how it's become what it is, and where we plan to go in the future. Sure. Just a little. So go ahead and tell us about yourself. Tell us where you came from, tell us about your family, how you grew up, and then how you've gotten to the point that you are at today.
Okay. So grew up in a small town in West Texas called Olton, Texas. So for those of you who don't know, it's tucked in between Lubbock and Amarillo. Most people tend to know Big Texan Steakhouse in Amarillo, or obviously Texas Tech University in Texas, but really right smack in the middle. In a small town, population about 2,300 at the time. Today It's probably struggling to hit 1,500 if not less.
Okay.
But very much an agricultural town. And because it was an agricultural town, so small, we had limited opportunities. And so I was from a family of 9, for the majority of my life, was with a strong single family household led by my mom. Yeah. Very, very strong woman. And so what we did is we went to school during the day, we went to work in the evening. And then, we'd come home, we'd do our homework and repeat the process. And depending on, the time of the year would determine what produce we were picking. So it could be, pumpkins, or, for Thanksgiving, those decorative pumpkins. It could be pecans. It could be watermelons. Could be that we're planting onions. Could be that we're chopping cotton. But there's always some agriculture job to do, and so that's what we grew up doing, and obviously grew up aspiring to be more and do more. And I was asking the question, why is this it for us? Yeah. And so to the point where I was blessed to, connect with some really good mentors to help guide me.
For sure. Yeah. So when did your passion of service begin? Now, I know we've talked a little bit about, outside of this interview, we've talked about your family and growing up and how your mom was just a servant leader to the T. So when did your passion for service begin?
At a very young age. Now, I got to tell you that back then, of course, I was a kid, right? I wanted my weekends to have fun and run around, outside with my friends. But my mom and my dad had other plans, right? And so it was either my dad who marched with some groups in Texas for obviously justice and equal opportunities for the Latino community. And then obviously my mom for those that were disadvantaged, whether it was the elderly, whether it was the poor, which is kind of ironic because we were quite poor ourselves. Yeah. Whoever it was that was disadvantaged or for our faith, my mom was always looking for those opportunities, which at the time, obviously, I didn't realize how it was shaping me and affecting how I looked at life. But my dad doing what he did, what that told me is that I can't take the opportunities I have today for granted. For sure. It was my dad and others who fought for those opportunities. Now it's my responsibility to do the same for the next generation. And so that's why I'm so active with the Latino community and continuing on that journey. Latinx and other things are obviously a big part of that. And then with my mom, with the service part, even though we didn't have much, in fact, some would argue we didn't have anything, somehow she'd find a way creatively to use what we did have. So one, she had 9 kids. Yeah. Right? The other, she was a great cook. For sure. And so she would always use the kids as an army to help her cook and go serve the food, which I thought was pretty clever. Yeah. Or if elderly needed help, she would obviously have one of us go and stay with the elderly. Like I stayed with my grandmother, who was paralyzed from the entire left side for a big part of my childhood. Wow. To take care of her. Yeah. And so, but that's what we did. And so what was interesting is, going through life, we really never needed for anything. Everyone knew us. We had relationships everywhere. But that's because we were always giving and serving, and that's who we were. Yeah, and that's made you who you are today, right? I mean, getting to be around that service from day one and getting to see your mom serve and your dad serve, and then you firsthand be like, well, I don't know any different. Let me just go ahead and go serve. Exactly. That's what's made you who you are, and that's really what's made Serve2Perform what it is. So tell us a little bit about how Serve2Perform started. Yeah, absolutely. And so, I'll add more to, as you talked about my mom serving and my dad. So, my mom, she didn't get past elementary school. She had to drop out to help her family, and my dad the same. But what's interesting is what I saw in service, I never wondered what college degree they had or if they finished high school, because when they were serving, they had this sense of empowerment, which was amazing. And they were in their element and they knew they were good at it, better than anyone else that was out there doing it. And so when you think of service and what that does to people who might find themselves in a point of, wondering their worth or their value, and struggling with their self-esteem, to empower them to say, you've got so much to offer, so much to give. Yes, a college degree is important, but it doesn't require a college degree for you to act on what excites you, what wakes you up in the morning, your passion to go out and make a difference. And so if you think about that, what service does in terms of self-empowerment and what that self-empowerment leads you to do, which is to act, and what that process of acting does for you in terms of growing your career, your development, your exposure, your opportunities, and your upward mobility ultimately.
For sure.
So at Serve2Perform, that's exactly what we do. Is we teach them how Serve2Perform works, right?
Yep.
How service, because for the most part, people have always viewed service as, it's an altruistic way of giving. Yeah. Right? This nonprofit needs help for this disadvantaged group, and so I'm going to write a check, or I'm going to go help them. Yeah. And they miss out tremendously on the opportunities for them to be able to benefit from that process and that act of service. So that's what we teach them, is to say, think about how you're serving today, and then ask yourself, what are you doing to ensure that you're fully leveraging that opportunity to help you grow in areas that you need to grow in?
For sure.
And leverage it as a practice field. And in the process of you doing that, you're going to be so much more engaged in serving in that role, so much more effective, that you can add more value to that nonprofit or that individual you're serving.
For sure.
And so, folks need to start with that first, right? Because at the end of the day, it all starts with asking ourselves, what's in it for me? And that's okay. Yeah. Because the reason it's important that you ask that, because that's what's going to determine why you're doing it, why that's going to motivate you, why that's going to get you to actually go and do it when you're not getting paid, when you've got other demands that are coming at you, such as work or other things, right? Yeah. And so you have to start there. And then once you answer that, then you actually then go and find the opportunity to serve, and you connect the two. And in the process, not only are you gaining real-time practice and growing, developing in whatever area that is, but you're a much better person in the act of service.
For sure.
If you're a board member, you're not just going and showing up and just listening and check the box. Yeah. You're going in there with an agenda of what you want to learn and grow and develop, and you are going to lean in and engage in a more meaningful way, in a way where you're going to add value to that organization, not just take a seat from someone else who would.
Yeah, exactly. So how has your passion for service really developed the culture here at Serve2Perform? How is what we do on a daily basis serving? How do we implement that on every single page we turn in a book, or every single client that we sit down and talk to? How important, and how do we make that the main thing that we're focusing on?
Yeah, it's a good question. So service to us at Serve2Perform is in everything we do. It's not just volunteer service. It's in how we treat each other as team members.
For sure.
How it's the experience we provide our customers. It's the experience we provide anyone that we come across in the community. It's in how we talk to you. It's how we engage you. Yeah. It's how we involve you. It's how we serve you. So it's in everything we do. From one-on-one conversations to team conversations to the client engagements that we deliver, to the roundtables that we deliver to generate thought leadership that's going to advance our communities and our clients. Whatever it is, it's in everything we do, and that's who we are. So we're very, very disciplined in ensuring that the people that we add to our team are people that live a life of service. For sure. Not folks who are willing to serve to work at Serve2Perform. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Knowing that if we are able and lucky to find those folks, and we've been very fortunate to bring in an amazing team of servant leaders, what we can do is empower them with our Serve2Perform methodology, and they achieve amazing things, which is what's really helped us achieve the success that we have.
For sure. So you just touched on a little bit the Serve2Perform methodology. Tell us what that is, tell us how that was developed, and tell us how that is so crucial to what we do.
Sure. So how it was developed was obviously, as I told people, I commercialized my upbringing, right? And so when I was a kid, I did all that service kicking and screaming, not realizing why we were doing it. But as I got through college, and I remember there was one class that was very crucible in my life journey, and it was taught by Dr. Bush Schwab at the U of A, and it was a sociology class, and the book was titled Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam, written in 2000. And it was the first time I had heard of the concept of social capital.
Okay.
And as we were talking about it, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. That's exactly what my mom had, right? So if you think of the different types of capital, you typically only hear financial capital or human capital, right? So human capital, how many degrees do I have? How much advanced learning do I have? Financial capital, how much wealth do I have, right?
Yeah.
But no one really talks much about social capital.
For sure.
And it is the most empowering, most equitable, most long-lasting form of capital.
Yeah.
You'll run out of financial capital soon, right?
Yeah.
And because of age, our human capital, it will eventually start to diminish.
For sure.
Social capital, it'll continue as long as you want it because it's in how you treat people.
Yeah.
It's in the relationships that you keep. It's in how you give and how you serve.
For sure.
And so you can do that throughout your entire life. And it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have. What matters is how many people you give and impact. And does that make sense?
Yeah.
And empower. That's what determines your social capital. And your social capital affords you any opportunity you're seeking.
Yeah.
And so in terms of the methodology that we have with Serve2Perform, is it's teaching people how service works. So one, making sure that we teach our service model. In other words, for us, service is more than volunteer service, right?
For sure.
Service, and honestly, for us, is leadership.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to serve, then you don't know how to lead.
Yeah.
And in fact, I wish we could change the term leadership to serviceship. Because that's really what it's about, right? When you're a leader, it doesn't mean that you are now entitled to a group of folks who will now follow you.
Yeah.
No. What it means is you have now been bestowed with the honor of serving a group of people.
For
now,
sure.
if you want them to follow you, you have to earn it.
Yeah.
It's not going to come just with you earning the title. And so we teach people that, and we teach people how to live a life of service in everything you do. And so we meet people where they are. If you want to learn how to lead, if you want to learn how to influence, if you want to learn how to achieve business transformation or manage change, if you want to learn how to develop a diverse and inclusive culture, whatever it is, we meet you where you are, and then we teach you how to leverage service to achieve that goal. And then we have a methodology that we teach for them to follow. And so if it's mentorship, we have a Serve2Perform methodology on how to do that. If it's coaching, we have a methodology or change or what have you.
For sure. Yeah, and that's so funny. It's like you knew my next question is the next question was what does Serve2Perform do? And you literally just to a T explained it in like 15 words or less, and that's perfect. I mean, we meet people where they are. We show people, hey, if you were a little better at this, or maybe if you had service at the forefront of your mind, or maybe if you communicated a little bit better, something as simple as that could be huge for a business, could be huge for relationships, could be huge for, a boss and mentor relationship, and for it to even work in the first place, which is so interesting because that's just natural when we talk about Serve2Perform, and that's what's so unique about Serve2Perform is what we do is who we are, and it directly correlates, which is not what a lot of people can say. A lot of companies can't say that for sure. So what makes S2P different? What do we do that other companies do not do?
Absolutely. So for us is what makes us very different is obviously our Serve2Perform methodology, right? And that we basically serve our clients, help them achieve their goals, right, that they're obviously interested in pursuing through service. So that alone makes us very different. I don't know of another company that does, and that's why it's proprietary to us.
Yeah.
But the other that makes us very different is relationships.
For sure.
We focus on two things, relationships and results. And the reason we do is we know that results will not happen without relationships.
For sure.
Right? You have to ensure that the people that you serve, whether it's your team members or your clients, that they are convinced that you care about them more than the contract that you are seeking or that you are given, but that you care about them as an individual.
For sure.
And you care about them to the point that what wakes them up in the morning or keeps them up at night also keeps you up at night and wakes you up in the morning because you care about them that much.
Yeah.
That you care about them so much that you know more about them than the title that's on their business card.
For sure.
And that you engage them as a personal friend right? As a relationship,
Yeah.
not a transactional client or contact that you have.
For sure.
And so my hope is in every client or every person that's ever come across Serve2Perform, if you were to ask them that question, that they would answer in that same way. In our Serve2Perform methodology, but the other is in the relationships that we keep, that we are more than just a outside firm or third party, but we are a partner that's fully invested and have a lot at stake with our clients and the organizations that we serve.
Yeah. How do you serve to perform in your everyday life?
I like to think it's in everything that I do because I don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that it's almost a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing and it's given me a lot of blessings. It's opened a lot of doors and opportunities for me. And look at this firm. It's a curse because I constantly find myself failing. And what I mean by that is when I say it's serving in everything we do, it's even to your point earlier in how you communicate.
Yeah.
Are you communicating with empathy? Are you communicating with compassion? Are you dealing with issues or crisis with calm, with poise and control? And I catch myself in the act many times, and I can't stand it, and I have the hardest time forgiving myself. And so it's like what it does is it gives you continuous feedback. And that's the worst feedback. I can take feedback from someone else much better than feedback that comes from myself. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Because that comes straight from the heart. For sure. It hurts so much. But so it's in everything that I do. But beyond in how I treat people and engage and lead, it's also in how I serve. So my family and I and the kids from a young age, I wanted them to experience the same thing I got to experience as a kid. And so my wife and I have had them serving as a very young age. And they could give examples of what they had to do in serving to the point where they now live it and they now do it in their own way. And so I'm telling you, service is so easy and it's so powerful. But if you think about what people struggle with, and you name the workplace and the community, it's in just acting and with that heart of service and investing in the relationships. So if you think of most issues that are happening in the workplace or between people or even in this country or internationally, it all stems to relationships. It does. It all stems to people. And people are just not willing to listen and open your heart and find a common ground and find a way that both benefit, both learn, both grow. But it's so simple and so powerful, yet for so many people it's so hard. For sure, yeah. At S2P, we are the people's people. How do we as a company, we as individuals who work for this company do that? And how do we serve to be the people's people every day? What do we actively do? Why do we claim that we are the people's people? We're always given to help empower people. And so we are always, we provide a lot of training to our folks to make sure they know how to do it. Yeah. The other is we are always looking for new ways to add value to our clients. So when I say client, you name the client, we don't see it as a brick and mortar client. We see it as every single employee in that company. And we think of every single employee of that company, and we bring that perspective to our clients in terms of ways to be able to expand the great things that they're doing, or identify gaps that perhaps they're not seeing. But we bring a very different lens and different angle in how most companies see their workforce and see their business and see their people. But the other is we're constantly scanning the environment, both at the regional, at the national, at the global level. And the reason we constantly scan it is we're constantly looking for potential issues or potential opportunities, and then we translate that into solutions and we bring them to our clients. We want to be those eyes for our client that they can't have because they're too busy running their business. Yeah. And so we want to be the ones that are as invested in them in the success of their people and their business as they are. Yeah, yeah. Which makes complete sense. I mean, when it comes to Serve2Perform's manifesto and it comes to who we are and what we do, that is at the core. It's, coming in, seeing how a situation is, feeling it out, getting to know everybody, and then figuring out, okay, where are their areas of weakness that we can help,
that we can help them leverage and become much better than they even were before. And that's what's so unique, right? We've talked a lot about what we do and who we are and the people we have and all of that, but we haven't talked about just how special what we're doing is, right? There's, like you said, there's not really anybody else that we can think of that puts service at the forefront, that is a service-minded community like we are, a service-minded company like we are. There's not many. And if there is any, we haven't heard of them,
right.
you know?
Right.
And that's what makes it so unique. And that's what makes what we do so special and so intentional,
Right.
Which is the main part of what we're doing is being intentional with relationships, being intentional with communication, being intentional with service. And that's huge. That's huge in today's world, for sure. Do you have anything to add? Do you have anything?
No, I would just add that if you think of all of the people problems, if you would,
Yeah.
that you hear, throughout, the nation and the world, which really affects any company of all sizes, whether, the latest buzzwords are, skills gaps.
Yeah.
You hear the lack of agility, people not being nimble, people not being able to communicate, people not being problem solvers, people not being thought leaders. To me, those are all symptoms of the bigger problem.
For sure.
They're not the problem. The problem is people just don't live a life of service. If you think about if people were living a life of service within a company, for all the reasons that I shared earlier, how service empowers you to help you grow, develop, build relationships, influence, leadership, most things, you wouldn't have those issues.
Yeah.
People would be agile because they'd have the relationships and they'd constantly be learning from each other.
Yeah.
People would be able to generate thought leadership because that's how they're driven. They're driven to serve people. They're driven to make a difference. Skills gap. People would know exactly how to leverage service to go and develop whatever skill that they need.
For sure.
You wouldn't have a skills gap. Leadership. People would understand that leadership is about service. And they're out there developing their social capital where they have the influence. And I can go on and on and on and on. But the biggest problem in any workplace is that we don't have people who live a life of service.
For sure.
But we treat the symptoms and not the problem.
Yeah.
And so what I want to do was disrupt how we were addressing the problem. I just felt the industry, the talent development, HR, organizational development industries were just broken. We were trying to address the symptoms, throwing all this money at programs. You name the name of the program. There's probably 1,000 names of leadership programs, or the books, or the learning management systems, but we weren't addressing the problem.
Yeah.
And the problem is we needed to teach every individual from the front line to the front office how to live a life of service.
For sure.
And so that's what we're doing is we're very intentional at the beginning. We want to disrupt how we were addressing first defining the problem, right? Those ones that we are calling the problem today, or traditionally, are the symptoms.
Yeah.
And then the second is how we address the problem.
Yeah. Our unique approach here at Serve2Perform is, like you said, nothing you've ever seen, and nothing like I've ever seen, for sure. This inclusive environment and the environment to feel like I can sit here and talk to you and have this conversation with you is the reason we are who we are. And we are the people's people for a reason. We are service-minded. We are, inclusive. We create a sense of passion in every person because after we work with them, they feel like they are, a new person, so to speak, can be new and trust in themselves and believe in themselves. And that's what's so unique. There's not a lot of companies that do that either. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you sitting down and talking to us and answering these questions because there's no one better to talk to other than you. So thank you, Adam.
What it does is it gives a lot of the folks within the community a place to, again, come together and get exposure and training and development to that otherwise they may not know about or may not have access to. Right?
For sure.
And so I think that the biggest thing that it's really brought to the community, at least in the short term, is that we're able to pull all of these folks that have a desire. They have a desire to want to grow, to be empowered. And I think that the forums and the different things that we've been putting on throughout the year are giving them some great tools that they can use to not just be successful at work, but also in their personal life.